Hello, good afternoon, good evening, and we also say good morning to our colleagues who are just woken up. In Nairobi, it is a good afternoon, 2 p.m. We want to take this opportunity to welcome you to our 66th session of the ARSO monthly webinar series. On behalf of our Secretary General, Dr. Hemojin Sengemana, we want to welcome you and we want to thank you for the continued participation in the ARSO monthly webinar sessions. We realize that sometimes we have had webinar sessions, and especially this month and last month, very much successively following each other. But we thank you for the continued participation. Our webinar of today is on the theme scientific research and sustainable development. And the topic is promoting research as a basis for socio-economic development and the need for the standardization of research policy frameworks and guidelines. As you can see, I'm hosting on behalf of the Secretary General, Dr. Nsengemana. And our moderator today will be Ms. Susan Kialo, an ICT officer at the ARSO Central Secretariat. So we are blessed to have 4 panelists for today. And we also want to thank our panelists because it was on a short notice. And also we realized that the webinar was supposed to be held on the 27th of May, but it fell on a day that we had a public holiday for our Muslim brothers, member states or members and the stakeholders. So due to the interests in this webinar, we had a request that if we can postpone or we can push it forward. But the option that was fitting well with most people was today, the 3rd. And some people also, it was not very okay with them. That is why we can see the fluctuated numbers. But we thank all the delegates who are here to attend this webinar. Our moderator, Susan Kialo, our first panelist will be Mr. Kawere Richard, the co-chair ARSO TC 76 and the chair of the ARSO PC 01, which has been involved in the development or research harmonization in the research project or the research issues that we have or we are discussing today. Then we have Mr. Cosmas Mulamba, Manager Finance Training and Practice Science for Africa Foundation. We have Mr. Vincent Tundimana, Senior Program Coordinator, Strengthening Science Ecosystem from the Science for Africa Foundation. And then we have Mr. Daniel Mansfield, the Head of Policy Management at the British Standards Institute. Those are the panelists that we have, and their session, they will be introduced better by our moderator, Ms. Susan Kialo, when we get into the plenary session shortly after this. We just wanted to make some highlights on this to put the theme and the topic in their necessary context. We highlight that research and standardization are two sides of the same coin. And we say good research and good standards are the glue that sticks them together. How much do they rely on each other? Say that researchers and standardization bodies are key to accelerating societal transition and contributing to society's demand for sustainable resilience and digitalization. Standards are the agreed upon best practices published by national and international bodies and are key enablers of transformation. But if we say that standards are agreed upon best practices, then standards must emanate from somewhere. So we say that standards are based on scientific evidence. Without good research, then we will have outcomes that are not trustworthy and that we don't trust. So we will end up with standards which are not accurate in terms of their specifications, in terms of their technical requirements that are published in the standards. So you will agree with me, as we will see further, that standards need the standards are based on scientific research and evidence, and this can only be produced by a very good and trustworthy research project or process. And that is why at the same time now we say they are two sides of the same coin, and good research and good standard is the glue that make them stick together. If one is bad, the other will automatically be bad. So in this context, it is highlighted that the webinar is being held at a time when ARSO and the Science for Africa Foundation has collaborated to harmonize the first African and international standard on good research management practice, which was officially launched on 6th June 2024 in Nairobi, Kenya, and where African experts from 9 ARSO member states participated in its development. The webinar aims to promote the uptake of research in communities, industries, and public sector, which well resonates with Africa's Agenda 2063 and SDGs 2030. So we say good research, good standards. And if a research is based on a standardized system, then that research will produce good outcomes and trustworthy outcomes at the same time and as the basis of the standard. So scientific evidence serves as the bedrock of standardization, transforming theoretical concepts and inspiring empirical findings into robust, globally accepted benchmarks. So that's why we say they are intertwined. It ensures that procedures, products, and services are safe, reliable, and interoperable while preventing subjective guesswork. I think that one is what we are discussing here. Is it important to standardize research systems so that we are sure that this research was trustworthy, the outcomes are trustworthy, it was done in a good manner. So whatever it is presenting as results are confirmed to be right. And that is what will go into the standardization or standards. For example, in the medical field, we say that maybe the research said this is the disease and this is what it needs to be cured, or this one needs to be the cure. And then there will be prescriptions, and you will see that is saying if you are this age, if you are this weight, this is the prescription. So it's only a good research that will produce such outcomes, and such outcomes will now be the basis of standards, and they will be the basis of the medical practice. So this is why we say good research highlights or it benefits the standardization activities in terms of objectivity and bias reduction or reduction in biasness, safety and risk mitigation, global interoperability and trade, reproducibility and quality control, driving innovation by establishing what is already known and proven through science, effective public policy, and health care. So integrating scientific evidence directly into the standardization process guarantees that rules are not just biased and arbitrary conventions, but practically applicable tools that protect consumers, boost economic competitiveness, and elevate the overall quality of research and industry, and also the quality of the standards that we are now doing. We promoting research in terms of our policies, and you will realize that for Africa in the last few years, the 2016, 2025, 2024, the Africa declaring the year of education, and you will realize that the Africa itself is having this continental strategy for education in Africa, the CESA, and also the STISA. So all of these are promoting research and training. And we say research becomes the foundation of innovation. Research becomes the foundation of our national development or continental development and sustainability. I came across what the president of Ghana said, Kwame Nkrumah, and he says TISA is reflected on that President Kwame Nkrumah at the Foundation Summit of the Organization of African Unity at Addis Ababa in 24th May 1963, he highlighted the need to leverage on science and technology to make even the Sahara bloom into a vast field with verdant vegetation for agricultural and industrial development. So we say good research, and then research should be the research process should be trustworthy. So research and standardization drives innovation, enhances competitive advantage, facilitates market expansion, and contributes to sustainable development. So research is everything because it forms the bedrock of our industrial progress. So why is research considered important? We've just highlighted this, and I know these are basic facts that we know what the role of research is all about. That research, I like this one of research and development leads to breakthroughs and birth of new industries. And that one only needs a research which is trustworthy, a research which has been done in a recognized manner, and a research which everybody else has confidence on. Is saying research is crucial for solving social problems because it provides evidence-based insights. So this evidence-based insight, it must be a very good standards, very good research. And that is why we go back and say, is there a need to standardize the research process so that it gives us evidence-based, which we now use in the standards as scientific evidence to give the specifications and the technical requirements in our standards. Additionally, research can also help raise awareness, drive advocacy efforts, and mobilize resources to address social issues. Research in education helps in development of abilities, attitudes, and practical values of the society. And most of the time we say evidence-based decision-making, problem-solving, innovation, and development. This one only requires a very good research, a trustworthy research, and that is why we standardize the research process. So this is why we come up with the good research, the good governance and management of the research. We say research governance and management. Why standardize the research process? Good research management practices produces good and reliable research and creates confidence and trust in the outcomes, which is key pillar for standardization, which relies on true scientific evidence. So this is what this webinar is all about today, that we need to standardize our research so that what it produces now becomes reliable. We therefore highlight the need for a standard to ensure consistency among various approaches to research management and processes to address the significant inefficiencies between institutions and grant providers. And we say we need research integrity. The research integrity here means all of the sectors that underpin good research practice and promote trust and confidence in the research outcome. So why good research management and governance matters? Provides robust and ethical evidence, makes significant contribution to scientific development, involves systematic planning, built upon scientific sufficient relevant data, and recognizes that all relevant ethical guidelines must be practiced while conducting, reporting, and publishing good research quality. So we highlighted, and we are glad that we have Science for Africa Foundation as officials, as panelists in this webinar session. And this is why ARSO and the Science for Africa Foundation now came up with the first African good good research management practice standard, which was harmonized with the involvement of experts from 18 countries that we have highlighted as member states. And the standard is focused on ensuring the consistency, credibility, and confidence and transparency research culture in Africa. The standard was officially launched on the 6th June 2024 in Nairobi. We look at what this standard will benefit the community or the research community in Africa and the standardization community at the same time. And he said it has got many advantages if implemented, including specifying the requirements for organizations of any type, size, and complexity to meet the established standards for good research management practice, so that at the end of the day, we can trust the outcome of that research and they can be used in standards as scientific evidence. These are the people who have been involved in the development of that research and during one of the sessions that they have. And then good research practice standards, it went through a lot of processes just as any other any other standard. So final launching was on the 16th October 2025, Nairobi, and in cooperation with the Science for Africa Foundation. So these are just the highlights of what will this standard help, the benefits if it is implemented and the way it is being implemented currently. And we continue to cooperate with the Science for Africa Foundation on its implementation, because it is a standard for a good research, and the good research must produce trustworthy results, which can now be codified in standards for manufacturing and for industrialization that we are pursuing in Africa. So these are some of the benefits of this standard, and the standard is available on the ARSO website, and which mostly now most organizations are making reference to and also implementing it. The main objective of the webinar, that one we have highlighted because it gives us the opportunity to understand the need for good research and the need to standardize research, and also to facilitate better understanding how research contributes to standardization and how standardization contributes to the research. I just wanted to highlight that, and we are expecting to get a lot of this from our presenters of today or panelists of today. For those who have not met our Secretary General, Dr. Hemogene Nsengemana, is the Secretary General of ARSO since 2012, and he's saying beyond his more than 20 years of service to Africa, many of which in leadership positions, and with a long-standing and clear track record with ability for delivery of results. I think those who know the Secretary General, you will say that under his tenure, we have achieved a lot as ARSO and also for Africa. I'm just about to hand over to my colleague, Ms. Susan Kialo. This is our moderator of today. I know so many delegates here know Ms. Susan is our ICT officer since 2022 at the Central Secretariat. Susan also is progressively become one of the good standardizers that we have. She manages workflow activities and progress under the Textiles and Leather Standards Harmonization Project, as well as the African Gastronomy and Food Service Industry Standards and Harmonization Project. In this role, I know Susan interacts with many stakeholders, many experts, and interacts with the standardization language. And in one way or the other, Susan has interacted with the good research management practice standard and the stakeholders therein. Susan is a focused strategist with a wide knowledge of ICT and its business applications, and has remained strategic in the ARSO Central Secretariat, ICT and digitization processes, as well as data management systems. You remember we are all transitioning to digitalization and the AI, and we are lucky to have officials like Susan, which can both understand ICT and also the conventions in terms of this normal knowledge that we need, like in the standards harmonization. Susan graduated with a bachelor's degree in information technology at the Masinde Muliro University in Kenya and has undergone many short courses in standardization and capacity buildings. Now, henceforth, I'll hand over to Ms. Susan Kialo, who will be taking us through the plenary sessions and call on our panelists of today through this session that we will have in the next maybe 1 hour or so. Thank you very much. I just wanted to highlight that background so that as we do the presentations, we get to understand where we come from and where we are going and what we expect in this webinar session. I now call upon Susan to take over. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Philip. Thank you so much for the insightful opening remarks on behalf of our Secretary General, who is not currently in this meeting. Your reflections have set us a stage for this webinar. We now have an idea of what this webinar is all about. And now I bring in our panelists for today to discuss with us the sub-themes of this webinar. And our first panelist for today is Mr. Richard Kawere, who will be taking us through the importance of research as a pillar in standardization, on the basis being the source of scientific evidence and the ARSO standardization in research management initiatives as per the good research management practice standard. Mr. Kawere is the co-chair of ARSO TC76 on tourism and related services. He is also the chair of the ARSO PC01 on research management. Mr. Richard Kawere is a seasoned tourism and hospitality planning and development professional with more than 15 years of experience in academia, institutional leadership, and industry development. He currently serves as the principal of the Uganda Hotel and Tourism Training College, where he has played a vital role in advancing hospitality education and professional standards in Uganda. Throughout his career, Mr. Richard has demonstrated strong expertise in strategic planning, tourism investment planning, policy development, financial management, and corporate governance. He has served in several influential leadership and consultancy roles, including Chief Executive Officer and Technical Coordinator of the Uganda Tourism Association under the trademark East Africa. Head of Department at Makerere University Business School and Chairman of the Tourism and Hospitality Standards Committee at the Uganda National Bureau of Standards. He has also served on several boards like Butabika Psychiatric School, Makerere University Council, Makerere University Business School Council. His contributions have significantly strengthened tourism sector coordination, professional training, and industry advocacy within Uganda and East African region. In addition to his leadership roles, Richard is an accomplished academic and author with publications in tourism management, entrepreneurship, hospitality operations, and microfinance. He co-authored books and research studies focused on tourism expertise development and hospitality management practices, reflecting his commitment to knowledge creation and capacity building in this sector. His blend of academic excellence, professional certification, and practical leadership continues to position him as a respected figure in tourism and hospitality development in Uganda and beyond. Richard holds a Bachelor of Catering and Hotel Management, a Master of Business Administration, a postgraduate diploma in microfinance operations, and is currently pursuing a PhD in tourism management at Moi University in Kenya. He is also internationally certified in hospitality educator, procurement professional, sustainable tourism practices trainer, and quality assurance systems in hospitality and tourism. Welcome, Mr. Richard Kawere.
Thank you. Thank you, Susan, and our members online. Susan, would you want me to start the presentation?
Yes, please. You can share your screen.
Right, so we can go into right. Just hold on. Yeah, this is not the one. Can you be able to see the screen?
Yes, please. You can put it in presentation mode.
You can see it clearly now.
Yes, proceed.
Uh, Thank you, Susan, and the members online. As introduced, my name is Richard Kawere, and I currently work for the Hotel and Tourism Training College in Jinja in Uganda. Our school is the Center of Excellency for Tourism Training and Hospitality Education in Uganda. For those who have not been here, you should take a leap to come and visit us. We are located very close, 1 kilometer from the source of the Nile. So if you have not visited the source of the Nile and you have not visited Uganda, the tourism school invites you to come and visit Uganda, and we shall also take care of you. Most of I shared my presentation, and Philip made a very groundbreaking presentation, of which some of the things I'm going to speak to were articulately mentioned in his general presentation as as the note speaker earlier. So we'll just relate some of that knowledge, and then we'll be able to continue the discussion. Currently in Uganda, it's a public holiday for those who believe in the martyrdom. Today is Matters Day. It's a national celebration of the matters of the Uganda Christian and actually Muslim matters that were murdered some years back in Uganda for a strong belief in their faith. Sometimes there are different schools of thought, but that is it. And so we are celebrating. It was not publicly celebrated because of what is happening currently, the health global hazard of Ebola, but we continue to celebrate in our homes. So that's where we are, and I'd want to pick it up from there and say that we have in the topic that was shared, there were three important key pickups from what I'm supposed to discuss. And one of the key pickups was the importance of research as a pillar in standardization, and the importance of research as a source of scientific evidence in the development of the standards, and the importance of the good research management practice standard that we developed. So those are the key three ingredients that I picked out from the area I was asked to discuss, and we shall speak to those as other people will be able to speak to the others. And I would want to say that by and large, you'll find that it's very difficult for you to speak about standards development without research, because research is the backbone of effective standards development and sustainability, because research informs the standards. So every standard that we see, if we go deeper, it is based in operations research. There's a debate on research for publication and then the research for operationalization. Of course, there are different schools of thought, and that's not going to be our discussion today. But most of the standards developed are rooted in what we call action research. The standards research creates credibility for the standards and aligns with the technological process to foster innovation for proper global competitiveness. Just a bit, okay. So we had looked at that, and I was saying that research is the effective backbone for all effective standards that are developed. Most standards begin as a way of recognizing a practice. And then from that practice, we realize that we need to have a harmonized way of how to measure, how to look at this practice. Is it a product? Is it a service? And therefore, we now start digging deep on how best this practice or product can be produced. And during that digging deep into the different ways the product is produced or the service is delivered, the appreciations of the consumers, the appreciation of what would be ingredients, we then eventually come up with a standard. And that's why we come up with, that's why that statement is said. Modern industries demand evidence-driven standards to guarantee safety and sustainability, reliability and sustainability. So research provides the data that is needed to validate performance criteria, testing methods, and compliance requirements. Now, in a modern way of doing things, it is very difficult for you to develop a standard without data, without information. And therefore, when we're dealing with in the development of the standards, we need the data. We need the data. Of course, we are calling that performance criteria. How was this product developed? How does it perform? What does it attest to? And all these can be prescribed if we have to test them through research processes. And therefore, the research processes will give us what would be the acceptable limits, what would be the standard, what would be good in terms of safety. For talking about food, we're talking about health, how reliable are these tests, and then definitely this makes it very important, and that's why we emphasize that modern industries demand evidence-driven standards. Research also acts as a bridge. Okay, so we look at research now as a process of knowledge transfer. We look at also standards contributing in the process of knowledge transmission. And then, so research acts as a bridge between scientific discovery and practical application. Here we're looking at how research is very, very important, and standards as a nexus in terms of knowledge transmission. Here we're looking at standards incorporate findings, the latest findings, making them relevant and effective in real-world contexts. And standards facilitate information sharing and codification of knowledge, allowing organizations to easily access knowledge that they would otherwise not be able to acquire. Here, we're looking at the standards in the process of knowledge transmission. And we know that standards facilitate knowledge transmission. When you develop a standard, it will be very easy for you. It's very easy for the next person who is entering the business to be able to associate, to be able to pick up and go through their processes and see. In doing that, standards are being a benchmark of knowledge transmission. But this knowledge transmission is rooted in the researches that have been produced, because the standard comes, the research is first, and then we generate the standard, and the standard helps in the knowledge transmission. So in doing that, research becomes the bridge between scientific discovery and the practical application. We look at examples of healthcare, clinical information, and safety quality standards for the medical devices. So all this is important in standardization, because one of the key reasons why standards are developed is for us to have a standard, for us to have a commonly agreed unit of measure of the specific service or product in terms of its reliability, in terms of its quality. And that's where we say that in doing all this, we are aiding what we call knowledge transfer within the organization or industry. And when we are looking at standards in terms of innovation support, and then we're looking at standards accelerate adoption of technologies by creating common frameworks, and research-driven standards reduce uncertainty, enable fast commercialization. sorry, this commercialization, innovation, and for such as digital platforms. In this case, what we're looking at is we're looking at standards and research at a nexus of supporting innovation supporting innovation. Standards, in most cases, one of the key things they do is accelerate adoption of new technologies. As in the process of adopting new technologies, the standards will give clear pathlines, clear ways on how specific technologies can be adopted, how digital platforms, in just case here we're using digital, currently we are in a digital age. Many digital platforms are being developed. Of course, if you know, we have the TikToks, we have the financial platforms, but behind all of these, one is we must have agreed basic safety, basic usability standards. And out of those, it is easy for anybody to be able now to see how, if they're developing any digital platform, how it complies with acceptable standards. And that's when we are looking at, we look at standards and research supporting innovation. Standards also are very important in global competitiveness, especially in trade, because without compatibility, comparability of what we do, without you being able to be comfortable of what product or you're getting from another country, or the safety, the provisions, it becomes very difficult. So standards create that bridge, and eventually all organizations or countries that invest in research and development for purposes of internationalizing their products definitely come up with a competitive edge, because they'll always be able to compare what happens in the international space with what happens in their country, and this information helps them to raise their standards. So therefore, it is always very, very, there's, I would say that there is no way we would be able to compete on the globe without us conducting robust research to ensure that our products are accepted. Therefore, our products or products that are from nations or industry that have invested heavily in research and in the adoption of research in the development of the standards that guide either the country or factory production, help in terms of reducing global would-be trade barriers. It helps in what would call seamless interoperability. That, for example, if you manufacture a device, how does that device easily interconnect with other devices? If you develop a platform, how does it easily connect with other existing platforms? So this points the fact that if we are to be able to compete, it is very, very important that in our organizations, in our country, in our processes, we emphasize what we call research and development for purposes of being able to, that whatever we produce is within the acceptable limits or standards of that industry. And therefore, if the country pursues that, there are very high chances of its products or services to be able to meet the global market standards. That brings me to the importance. If research is important in the development of standards, we have seen that research is the bedrock. It's a scientific proof for developing of the standards. We now ask ourselves, then why is it important for us to have a generally acceptable research management practice standard? So if we're saying that research is the foundation for standards, then why isn't it so? Why don't we ask ourselves, how do we then regulate to ensure that the foundation of our standards, okay, has an acceptable framework that we all believe in? Because if we all have that, we all have a framework that we believe in, then it will be very easy for us to be able to accept the research findings that such a kind of a standard produces. It helps us. It's a mirror that guides that if somebody has conducted his research following this framework, then their results are highly believable. So that means it will reduce in terms of our acceptability, in terms of it reduce we know that this has little bias in terms of how they conducted their research, so it is easily leads to acceptability of the findings. And if these findings are easily accepted or widely accepted and they have gone through this framework, then it becomes very easy for us to use those findings to continuously improve our standards. So a standard that guides good research management practices across organizations is important because it creates consistent, transparent, and innovation-friendly framework of how research is conducted, shared, and applied. I came up with a few things that if we are to believe into this practice, that we have the good research management practice standards, then it creates transparency. That means we have the clear rules of data handling, data capture, the ethical standards are well respected. If you're doing a clinical research, we know that you've really observed the following standards that have been prescribed for clinical research. You've properly handled the data. So basically, your findings are believable. So the transparency is quite high. Collaboration, it eases partnerships because we are working within a framework that we all agree on. So it becomes very easy to collaborate for example, if Uganda, a hotel tourism school is doing a research to support probably a tourism practice standard, it becomes very easy for us to collaborate because we have agreed on a proper framework. In terms of efficiency, it reduces duplication. It has streamlined processes, innovations. It's faster for adoption of new ideas, and I've already talked about the global competitiveness. So that is our quick presentation, and then we will ask for if there are any questions that we can be able to take on those. Thank you very much. Back to you, Susan.
Thank you very much, Mr. Richard. I had two questions, but you have addressed one on how research is key in standardization. You have highlighted that standards backed by research are accepted globally, reduce technical barriers to trade, and also ensure interoperability. My second question will be, why is it important to standardize research policy frameworks, guidelines, and processes? And what plans are there to ensure that the development of certification schemes for the standard GRMP for implementation? Thank you.
So the first question is we have that's I said as the first presenter made the key uh, key he alluded to most of the what is required in terms of research as the supporting foundation for standards development. The other thing is that we are looking at I kind of made a quick presentation, a quick summary on how the general management, research management practice standards can be of importance, and are saying that it supports if we are to develop if this general research management good practice standard, it helps us to create a framework that we all believe in terms of doing our research. And if the framework is easily acceptable and believable, that framework will then help in reducing some of what you see on the screen. It will create transparency in the way we handle our data reporting, and therefore the results that come out of such a framework are easily believable. It facilitates collaboration, it facilitates efficiency and innovation. So these good practice research management standards, and I'm saying it is are critical for researchers within the research space at different levels to be able to, I would say, have some kind of a foundation benchmark that if my organization is satisfied on using this framework, then if I'm to work with this organization, I already know that they have what I would call the fitting standards. I cannot doubt what their findings are because they have worked within this framework. And that's the framework, of course, when you're doing research. In the framework, there's what we call data handling, reporting, ethical considerations in doing this research. So if people have followed what you have agreed within that area, then it becomes the methodologies that they have deployed are acceptable, and you're sure they will give you believable results. So that is the importance, that if we are to be able to continue to root our standards and our collaborations within the research, then it will be important for us to have something that guides us, or a framework that we all believe in, and it will give us good results. That is what I could probably say, because it will promote what we call quality and trust of the research that we are looking at, because it establishes what I will call the minimum quality, what would be the safety and ethical benchmarks. So basically, it builds trust among the collaborators, the funders, the public, and we know that within that, there's reduction of risk in terms of associated. So we have that basically within the good management. So there's trust. And we have talked about compatibility and interoperability of the information, seamlessness of what is developed. We've talked about efficiency and scalability. These are all critical in terms of how to adopt, or the importance of the good management research standards. When you talk about policy and innovation alignment, these are all very critical considerations, especially when it comes to us accepting proper research management standard.
Thank you very much, Mr. Richard. We now move to our next panelist. Our next panelist is Mr. Cosmas Mulumba, who will talk who will discuss with us the strengthening of grant governance for sustainable development impact, why standardizing grant funding matters. Mr. Cosmas is a manager, finance training and practice science for Africa Foundation. Mr. Cosmas is also an experienced public financial management expert with over 15 years experience in Kenya, the region, and abroad. He has been engaged in capacity strengthening initiatives in multiple African countries, building institutional capacity in financial systems, risk management, and operations management. His work supports sustainable governance in donor-funded institutions, empowering them with tools and frameworks to enhance accountability and effectiveness. With a strong background in public financial management and governance of donor-funded programs, Cosmas brings deep experience in capacity building, technical facilitation, and policy engagement. He has been integral to the conceptualization and ongoing development of the Good Financial Grant Practice Standard. From early ideation to revisions, he has co-facilitated technical working group workshops and made presentations to the African Organization for Standardization through the Technical Harmonization Committee. He's also helping guide the standards continent-wide and global adoption. Cosmas is a certified public accountant of Kenya and holds a BSc from the University of Nairobi. Welcome, Mr. Cosmas.
Thank you very much. Good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are. I hope you can hear me.
Yes,
Yes.
we confirm we can hear you.
I want to share my slide. Are you able to see my slides?
Yes, please put it in presentation mode.
Okay, let me put it in presentation mode. Is it good now?
Yes, proceed.
Thank you very much. My topic for today is strengthening grant governance for sustainable development impact. And we are trying to address the key question of why standardizing grant funding matters. And I thought of it to be basically what I do, and I thought of just sharing basically what I do and what we do at the Science for Africa Foundation. And I think as we proceed, we will link it up now to where all this leads up and the impact we are trying to create. So at Science for Africa Foundation, we are a Pan-Africa organization, and we actually are in the science and research ecosystem in Africa, working with over 40 countries in Africa. And one of the things we saw, just as the previous speaker said, research is very important. But we also reckon there are some services that go towards research that may not be research per se, but they really help in terms of bringing out quality outputs. One of those services is actually the financial side of it. Research needs money. Where do we get this money? How do we fundraise, and how do we take care of basically the resources that we have? And that is why we are speaking today about the good financial grant practice. So I'll take the panelists I'll take the members just through what good financial grant practice is, and then I'll be able to answer basically the questions in terms of standardizations of financial governance, the impact, the challenges, and all that. So I'm going to talk about the good grant practice, which is the GFGP, and basically this is what we are trying to achieve. So we want to support grantees in enhancing their financial capabilities and achieving certification to good financial grant practice. And then the certification ensures that grantees adhere to an internationally recognized level of grants management accountability. So the objective is to have global adoption of GFGP through awareness, through partnerships, through technical assistance, and also to enhance transparency, accountability, efficiency in grant funding through innovative products and standards. And then the way the standard works is basically we have the standard itself, which we basically led by ARSO. And then we have basically there is a portal where people can pre-test themselves and fill in quite a lot in terms of questions. They can actually tell their capacity by filling in their information on the portal. And then once that is done and an organization feels it's ready, then there is the assessment bit of it.
Sorry to interrupt.
Yes.
Your slides are not moving.
My slides are not moving.
Yes, we are stuck on the first.
They are moving on my end. Let me reshare again, yeah. And now?
They are moving. You can now proceed.
Good. Okay. So this is what I was at. I was saying the critical and most important things about the standard is the overall goal, which is to support basically grantees in enhancing their financial capabilities and achieving certification to the good financial grant practice, which we call the GFGP standard. And the certification ensures that grantees adhere to an international recognized level of grants management accountability. So the key thing is there is a standard and people aim to be compliant with that standard. And by being compliant to that standard, you get a certification for it. And that certification ensures that you have improved your systems of accountability as an organization. So the objectives is basically what we want to do is to have global adoption of the good financial grant practice. And this we are going to do through awareness, through partnerships, and through technical assistance. And then we are going to enhance transparency, accountability, and efficiency in grant funding through innovative products and standards. And I was saying about the three components that are working together to ensure achievement of goals. So there is a standard itself, which has been basically developed with collaboration with ARSO. And then there is a portal that mirrors the standard. The portal is the reason we have a portal is because it's easy to access and organizations can go in and self-assess against the standard. And then once you do that, there is a certification process where certified auditors will come and actually confirm whether what you filled in terms of the portal actually agrees to your practice, agrees to your documentation. And when that is done, there is certification that comes with it. So I'm going to speak about the importance of that certification and the process as we proceed with our presentation. So, and that standard, the overview is that it covers quite a lot in terms of what we foresee to be financial governance. Financial governance is not about money alone, but it's about the financial management side of it, the human resource side of it, the procurement side of it, the governance side of it, because again, all these work together in an organization. And then the standard is basically tiered with bronze, silver, gold, platinum, and this is made basically to allow, because we reckon there are different size, type of organization, different capacities across the globe, across Africa, and therefore the standard is tiered just to put in mind that the stage at which an organization operates in. And then so far, we have quite a number of organizations that have been in one way or another using the standard. So over 500 organizations who basically are interested and are working with the standard. Over 1,200 users on the portal, over 64 countries where the standard is being used, and then over 20 certified organizations. So if you look at these, you see the number of certified organizations is quite small, but the number of organizations that are using the standard are high. And this is for various reasons. One, you can use the standard even without being certified, and the standard can still help you in terms of improving your governance, improving your processes, improving your policies. But now, for you to actually, for other people to rely on your systems, on your accountability, to trust your systems, then now you need to go through the certification process, because the certification is done by independent auditors. And once that is done, then it means third parties can actually rely on us. A few challenges which we can discuss as we proceed in terms of why that number looks small, and what we are trying to do to increase that number. And then you can see we are in Africa and also outside Africa. You can see Africa is really taking shape in terms of adopting this standard, which is a very good indication, because the standard is developed in Africa, and therefore it will be good if we see a lot of interest in Africa, and also a standard that comes from Africa going to the global north and going to everywhere else in the world is quite something that we need to be proud of. And then this is basically the process currently, which one goes through for them to be certified. I will not speak to that much. And then also now, I think this is where our key interest should be in terms of what are the benefits and who are the key beneficiaries of standardization. And for my case is standardization for financial governance. So we have a number of stakeholders who benefit, and one is the funding agencies themselves. So the funding agencies around the world will use GFGP standard as a benchmark to undertake a robust and cost-efficient due diligence on their grantees, undertake capacity building initiatives. So what basically happens in the grant giving and grant taking space is that each funder or each donor or each grantor has their own rules, their own expectations. So that if you look at the organizations that are looking funding, sometimes they don't have the capacity to handle all those requests. And also, most of the times, the kind of questions and the kind of documentations that are being required by these funders are similar to some extent. So the importance of standardizing that is that now we are putting donors into one basket, whereby a donor can rely on the due diligence of another donor. That saves time, saves resources in terms of the due diligence time and money involved, and also it standardizes and puts funders into one lens in terms of thinking, so that they can actually agree on what is the best way in terms of solving the challenges they are facing, and also reporting back to their citizens and all that. Then the other group that benefits a lot is the grant recipients themselves, because they use GFGP to demonstrate their compliance to an international good financial practice. So here you find an organization in country A can actually compare to an organization in country B, because all of them have been subjected to the same standard. And that's very good, because I've seen some organizations that think they have capacity, and they think their systems are good, they think their systems are robust, and once they subject themselves to GFGP, they realize they have quite a number of gaps, and they were not quite aware of some of the requirements, some of the best practice, and and some other region has moved in this direction, yet for them maybe they are not moving in other direction. So there's quite a lot of advantages when it comes to grant recipients. And also what I've seen with grant recipients is sometimes they may not actually want to go through the whole process, but they just use GFGP to identify their gaps. And once they find the gaps, now they fix the gaps. And by fixing the gaps, they increase their level of accountability and reduce their level of risk. So beneficiaries, you can see on the right side is quite a number: government agencies, research institutions, higher education, foundations, corporations. So all these are stakeholders that actually benefit from standardizations in terms of the financial governance aspects. And that is the end of my slide. I don't know whether I've used my 10 minutes. So we'll welcome questions, Ms. Kialo.
Thank you, Mr. Cosmas, for the great presentation. You've highlighted how the GFGP is strengthening grant governance. So if I may ask, what are the key challenges in standardizing this grant funding strategy?
Okay, that's quite a very good question. And I'll tell you some of the challenges we've faced and some of the challenges that we still continue facing. So number one is diversity of funders. And diversity of funder comes from where they come from and the nature of the funder. So for example, they are what we call government funders. The likes of FCDO, the likes of USAID. They have some rules, and those rules are quite stringent. And also we have these other funders that are like foundations, philanthropists. Those funders are a bit easier to engage, easier to deal with. So the fact that the standard tries to pull funders into one basket, there's quite a lot of work there in terms of making them try to see whatever we are doing from one lens. It is something we are actually doing, and so far, I can say there's quite a lot of synthesis and a lot of agreement in terms of what they see and basically similarities, and they're actually coming to agree. So that's one challenge: diversity of funders. The other challenge is the capacity gaps among the grantees. Now you go somewhere in an organization, you find there's a lot of capacity. The organization is well resourced, has qualified personnel, mature policies, a very functional board. And then you go the same country or the same geography, and you find a direct opposite, an organization with weak boards, not well resourced, just a lot of challenges. So those are the things we face. Then maybe the other challenges that I can highlight is now the regulatory and the legal differences now. The organizations we are trying to work with are constituted differently in terms of legal. Some organizations are owned by government. Some organizations are NGOs. Some organizations are quasi-government. And therefore, each type of maybe registration or formation presents basically a different challenge when it comes to how to adapt the standard. I think those are the main challenges I can point out.
Thank you very much. We now move to the next panelist. Our next panelist is Mr. Vincent, who will talk to us about the GRMP standard as a catalyst for research governance transformation across Africa research and innovation ecosystem. Mr. Vincent is a senior program coordinator strengthening science ecosystems for African Foundation. Vincent is a research management, standardization, and public policy professional with over 11 years of experience in institutional strengthening, research governance, grant management, and capacity development across Africa. He currently serves as a senior program coordinator at the Science for Africa Foundation, where he leads and supports initiatives aimed at strengthening Africa's science, research, and innovation ecosystems, including enhancing research management systems, institutional effectiveness, and research excellence within universities and research institutions. Vincent has been actively involved in the development and implementation and promotion of international standards that strengthen research and grant management practices. He has contributed to initiatives supporting the adoption of standards such as the Good Research Management Practice Standard, which promotes improved governance, accountability, efficiency, and sustainability in research performing and research funding organizations. His work also supports the strengthening of research support systems and institutional capacities across the continent. His professional interests focus on building resilient research ecosystems, strengthening organizational capacity, fostering institutional partnerships, and advancing evidence-informed policymaking. He is particularly interested in the role of standardization and quality infrastructure in advancing sustainable development, research excellence, innovation, and socio-economic transformation across Africa. He holds a Master of Public Policy, a Master of International Relations, and an MBA. He is currently a PhD scholar in public policy at the University of Pretoria, where his research explores the integration of indigenous knowledge systems into Africa's research and innovation ecosystems. Welcome, Mr. Vincent.
Thank you so much, Susan. Hello, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, depending on where you're calling from. I'll share my screen. I hope you can hear me and you can see my screen.
Yes, please proceed.
Right, thank you. So, it's really a privilege to share with you insights and on the GRMP standard as a catalyst for research governance transformation across Africa, research and innovation ecosystem. So basically, my talk will be focusing on how the Good Research Management Practice Standard, which was published in last year in June and launched in October 2025. This and how it is really transforming the research and innovation ecosystem across the continent, and how it's embedding into the ecosystem really can lead to sustainable development across the continent. So if we can just do a recap, I know we spoke about the research and innovation ecosystem, and thanks Cosmas for to talk to us about the role of Science for Africa Foundation. So as Cosmas highlighted, we are a Pan-African not-for-profit organization that supports, promotes, and strengthens research and innovation across the continent. And the way we do our business is really we have a large network of scientists across the continent. So we convene these scientists, policymakers, to work together to just identify challenges and gaps that are within the research and innovation ecosystem across the continent. And then we design programs to respond to those challenges. We provide funding for the research and innovation, and we do some oversight work, to oversee how the ecosystem is behaving, any challenges, and then we find solution to the ecosystem. So I just want to recap on the research and innovation. research is really about generating scientific knowledge, depending on the areas and challenges that exist, within communities. You can just think about, research maybe in the areas of diseases, food, and agriculture, engineering. But research is really has some relationship with innovation, because innovation is now the process of using this scientific research, to create products and services that can, serve as solutions to the issues in the community. So basically, innovations are there to make sense of the scientific knowledge. So here I'm using an example of intra-Africa trade, because it's really an important component of the standardization and quality infrastructure across the continent. So I just thought I should use, this example to show how research and innovation can drive intra-Africa trade. So basically, you have a knowledge, you turn that knowledge, scientific knowledge, into an innovation. And then intellectual property comes in also, because, you have to protect those innovations, and commercialize them to make sure that, trade is really running smoothly. But also there's another very important component of value addition in industrialization, because, I know the intra-Africa trade through FTFTA, there's a very important component on value addition. So through research and innovation work, it's actually very, very easy to achieve value addition, because, those innovations will really drive value addition to the Africa products and services, because, researchers spend a lot of time generating knowledge. Innovators come in to turn those ideas into practical solutions. So it's actually very easy to to cooperate with research and innovation practitioners to ensure that value addition is achieved. And then that will be make the job easy at the market access, and then we can have the socio-economic development for the African continent that we deserve. So basically, I just wanted to highlight that kind of linkage between research and innovation, how it it leads to intellectual property, value addition, market access, and socio-economic development. Just highlighting the context of intra-Africa trade. So now, having that in the background, why is it really necessary to standardize research management in Africa? Maybe I just highlight quickly what research management is. Research management within the context of universities and research institutions, research management is really those functions. You can just think of intellectual property offices, grants management offices, research ethics and integrity offices. So it's just those institutions that support researchers to be able to produce research outputs. So that's what really is research management. So it is very important to standardize research management, make sure that those functions are working effectively to support a researcher, because if those functions do not operating very well, that's a very big problem, because the researchers will not be able to produce research outputs that are of quality. So I just give an example of because at Science for Africa Foundation we engage with a lot of researchers in our network. So we had some conversations, and some of the researchers were telling us that they are hired to undertake 100% of research, but they end up doing about 50-60% of research administration, which is research management. Like, they are hired to do research, but they are doing now research management. So that's a very big problem, because research management should be done by somebody else, just to give a researcher for his full time to undertake his research. So that's why the idea of standardizing research management came in. But the reason why, more reasons why we standardize research management is because we have a continent with a lot of potentials, a lot of investments, a lot of infrastructure. I mean, in natural resources. But when you look at how that research ecosystem performing, it's really an alarming situation, because, like, for example, the research and innovation outputs that we have are not really enough. Like, for example, Africa as a continent contributes only less than 2% of patents globally. So that means like 98% of the innovations that we see across the globe come from elsewhere. We only contribute less than 2%. So that's a very not a very good situation if you look at it as a continent. But also we have, at a university and research institutional level, we have fragmented research systems, which really do not help a scientist to produce quality research that will, meet the certain standards to be able to solve the issues in the community. So, and then when you think about research management the other way around, one could ask a question to say, would investing in building research management excellent really make sense? What are the benefits? Because if you an organization or a university or research institution decides to invest in the research management excellence, there are a couple of benefits that are associated with that. Because number one, research excellence within an institution will really boost or improve global competitiveness of an institution itself, but also the ecosystem itself. If we have a robust research management ecosystem, that means our research innovation ecosystem will also be competitive globally, but also it will attract investment and funding. Colleagues working at the university, very well, funding is a very big issue. So when you have those very strong research systems, funders will trust you, partners will trust you, so that you'll be able to attract some funding, but also retaining, attracting talent. So people like to work in institutions that are very well organized. So when you put your house in order, you build very good research systems. So the people working for you will not want to leave that organization. But also, of course, there will be an increase in research outputs and research outcomes, but and that will lead to economic growth and innovation at ecosystem level or at regional levels. And then that will also, ignite how the ecosystem engage with policy makers, and to make those decisions, to use research outputs to make policy decisions. So I just wanted to us to reflect on this sort of court. So Dr. Victoria Kasparovich is one of our SFA-funded grantees. So one day we were having a conversation about how the importance of research management, because she's a researcher, a very well-known researcher. And then we're just having a conversation in the room to say, does really research management help researchers? So this is what she said. She said, an A-rated research equals an A-rated research management. What this means is really to say that for an organization to achieve research excellence or an A-rated research, it means that organization must have an A-rated research management system. That's the reason why during my next class we'll be talking about the standard. That standard that's coming in to standardize research management at a university and research institution. So the good research management practice, as I said, it's a standard that is published, and it's also, we worked with a couple of partners, of course, being led by ARSO to come up with this standard. It's been a 7-year journey, I would say, to come up with this standard. It's been a robust journey, and I'm happy to see the colleagues, who participated in this process, and also to have our able chair, Richard, who was the chair of the committee that developed this standard. And so the JRP standard is really an international standard that specifies the requirements for the research management across organizations that undertake research. And so basically this standard can be used by universities or research institutions, to check, how their research systems operate, but also to improve, to check the gaps, the strength, and then to improve. But also this standard can be used by non-research performing institutions such as the funders. Funders are interested in making sure that their grantees have robust research systems. They're interested in knowing the gaps and formulating a framework on how to, bridge those gaps to ensure that their research funding, their research grants or research, are being used, managed in a very good environment. But also this standard can be used by like science granting councils within countries who manage, research ecosystem at local level. So the goals of the standard are to assist institutional leaders to make, optimal use of optimal decisions within the limited resources, but also the standard is very important to help institutions to manage human capital, infrastructure, and funding, but also to oversee and the research enterprise, but also it may maximize impact for socio-economic, environmental growth, and sustainability. So it's really a standard, that provide a framework for how to govern research at institutional level. So this standard has 8 practice areas. I will not go through them all, but so we have, research governance and strategies, research policies, organization support and infrastructures, career development, orientation and training, communication and engagement with stakeholders, identification of funding opportunities, support of applications, project management, award management, and compliance. So these 8 critical areas were very well thought, and there's so many consultations, to try to make sure that the components of the standard are really speaking to the realities of organizations across the continent. And I should also highlight that this is one of those international and innovative standards, because in the whole entire research innovation ecosystem globally, we don't have a standard for how to manage research management. So we are very proud, to have partnered with ARSO to come up with an international standard that is an innovation, but also that speaks to strengthening the research innovation ecosystem. So the standard is available in English, French, Arabic, and Portuguese. So, like for instance, if you scan this QR code, you'll be able to have access to the version of the standard in these 4 languages. And also, again, we are also grateful to the African Organization for Standardization for granting us open access, to be able to, for the community to be able to access this standard. We're really so grateful to ARSO Central Secretariat. So I want to speak about the linkage of GRMP to African priorities. We have AU Agenda 2063, and we also have STISA 2034. So basically, all these continental priorities, they talk about strengthening continental and national science, innovation, and technology systems. So if you read through these continental agendas, so they're really putting science and innovation as a priority, because they believe that science and innovation can really serve as a driver in enabling the continent to achieve sustainable development. That's the reason why, when you're developing the standard, you have to make sure that it is speaking to the AU Agenda 2063, Africa we want, but also speaking to the objectives and aspirations of the science and innovation for the entire continent. So, as always, the Science for Africa Foundation, has a very innovative approach to implementing standards. So whenever you implement a standard, you have to make sure that there are tools. There are very robust tools available to be able to facilitate institutions and the people to implement the standard. So as you can see, the GRMP ecosystem has about 4 components. Number 1, we have, of course, the standard that I talked about. Number 2, we have what we call a portal. So a portal is a digital platform whereby an organization, can go in and take a self-assessment to determine the gaps, strength, and then this portal will generate a report to show you the gaps. But also, when you have the gap, of course, you'll be able to come up with a roadmap for institutional capacity strengthening, but also to bridge those gaps. Then we have what we call a training scheme. So basically, a training scheme is to build capacity, because we need people, experts, to be able to implement the standard. So we develop a training scheme, which is really comprises of training materials, step by step, how guide for organizations on how to implement the standard. And then we also have a framework for licensing training service providers to ensure that if an organization wishes to engage experts to be trained on GRMP standard, there's that possibility. We also have a director of GRMP experts, who can be contacted by organizations in the ecosystem to assist them deliver training on JRMP. So then number 4, we have certification scheme. So certification scheme, that means, if an organization you are implementing the standard, there's a possibility that you can become certified by an independent auditor or body. So that means we need to have licensed certification bodies, audit tools, but also director of certified organizations to ensure that if you are claiming that you are certified, there's that visibility. So this is how the JRMP ecosystem is constructed. So far, we've been able to develop training materials, but we are still, developing the certification scheme, the portal, and of course, in collaboration with ARSO, and we hope the entire system will really assist in simplifying the implementation of the JRMP across Africa and even beyond. So the key message is really, I just wanted to come back to the original idea of how the research and innovation as an ecosystem, contribute to sustainable development. So we see the research and innovation as an engine to, sustainable development, because, it generates new knowledge, it solves African challenges, turn ideas into innovations, but also to build talent and skills. And we see the JRMP as the fuel, because, if you don't have good research management practices, that means it will be difficult for you to achieve research and innovation. So we see JRMP standard as an engine to achieve the research and innovation. And if I use that example of the CFTA, now if we have research and innovation that is working, that is being supported by research management practice standard, so that way we'll be able to have the kind of innovations that we need, the intellectual property systems that we need, and we'll be able to to achieve the intra-Africa trade that is very well supported, the kind of value additions that we want, and we're able to achieve sustainable development in that manner. So my last slide is really on call to action, because as I said, the standard is now published. It's been, I think 18 countries have contributed to the development of the standard. So I would like to call upon you guys to assist in adopting the JRMP standard within your countries, because that's very important to have the standard adopted within your countries. Number 2, would like to engage you guys in co-creating implementation materials that I said. As I said, we are developing training scheme, certification scheme, even the portal. So would like you guys to engage you to ensure that these implementation tools that you are developing are really speaking to the realities on the continent. And then number 3, would like to call upon you guys to champion the JRMP standard within the research and innovation ecosystem in your countries, because this standard is really needed within your countries. So it will be really useful to assist us, advocate within your universities, research institutions in your countries, to ensure that they embrace this standard and implement it to strengthen the research and innovation ecosystem to achieve sustainable development that we want. So I thank you so much. Over to you, Susan.
Thank you so much, Vincent, for highlighting the importance of the GFGP standard and also its implementation and calling members to adopt the standard. We now move to our final presentation on the role of research in We now move to our final presentation on the role of research in revolutionizing businesses and industries and promoting productivity, competitiveness of economies, and in creating new businesses in emerging sectors and as the basis of responsive standardization systems. Our panelist for this is Daniel Mansfield, who is the head of policy engagement in British Standards Institute. Daniel's policy work centers on how standards and regulations work together. He focuses on BSI's role as the UK's national standards body and its interactions with the UK quality infrastructure. That includes standards, accreditation, and metrology. He also leads BSI's consumer engagement team. He has extensive experience of working with stakeholders to show how standards work with policy and regulations, how they support consumer safety, how they help advance business performance and innovation, and how they are essential to trade. Daniel has spent time in UK government on full-time secondment, where he worked in the Office of Product Safety and Standards on government standards and accreditation policy. At BSI, he has previously held operational and managerial positions right across the standards businesses, including international committee management and publishing and editorial roles. He has commissioned research into the economic impact of standards, notably publishing the Center for Economics and Business Research landmark report on the topic in 2015 and its revision in 2021. Welcome, Mr. Daniel.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for the invitation to speak today. It is a great honor for me to join you and share a few perspectives with you. I just will find my slides. Here we go. Is that now showing for you? Hang on, put that in presentation mode. There we are. Right, I just have about 10 minutes really, so a brief presentation today to really talk about the evidence base that we use for standards. It was really interesting to hear two of my fellow presenters talking about the good research management practice standards that you have published in ARSO recently, but also thinking back to Philip's introductory words that without good evidence, you know, what in fact do we put into standards? What do we base standards on? And so I may be taking a slightly higher level view than the previous presentation. Just really, if we remind ourselves what standards are and how they're used, and certainly in the UK, the standards that BSI is responsible for are all entirely voluntary. We do not have, certainly in BSI's catalogue, mandatory standards to the same extent that they exist elsewhere in the world, although occasionally government may refer to standards and you know you have to use them. But for us, what we do as BSI is our job is around convening. Our job is around working out what is the agreement, what is the agreed way of doing something, making a product, managing a process, or delivering a service. So, you know, I know this is sort of quite basic standards 101 for this audience, but I think it's helpful for us to remember that what we can do, the best thing that we can do as a standards body is bring our stakeholders together so that standards can represent the distilled wisdom of what good looks like. And so it is not for us at BSI, it's not for us as the standards body to dictate what is in the standards, but the stakeholders who come together, who make standards with us, they bring that expertise, they bring their evidence, they bring their research basis together. And our job as the standards body is to bring those voices together, and then the impacts that can have. What is a standard there for? Well, is it about productivity or an efficiency? Maybe it's about building trust, reducing costs. Of course, we've been hearing about accelerating innovation and promoting knowledge transfer. These are all really important aspects of standards. Basic things like interoperability, but also when we're thinking about our sustainability goals for the future, all of those things may come to play in standards, and our role is to stand there and really help that to happen in as good as way as possible. So in terms of who makes standards in the UK and what our job as BSI is in that piece. So the people, the standardizers, the standards makers, we often call them, come from pieces of government. They may well come from central government or some of our regional or devolved government. They may come from the regulator and enforcement community. They may come from societal and charity organizations and industry, but also really importantly, they come from academia as well. And our role is to as BSI is to sit in the middle of all of this and make sure that we balance all of these interests and expertise, and in fact that our doors remain open to hearing the best, the best expertise based on the best research, so that we can help the standards to be, as good as they possibly can be. And certainly on a BSI level, I thought it was worth just talking about, having sort of brought that all together, what is the framework where that we bring it together in. And so we have in the middle there, you can see the Standards Policy and Strategy Committee. This is our oversight committee with independent membership that oversees all of the standardization work that goes on in BSI. Now, below that, there are some coordinating committees, some sort of broad strategy committees, and then below those there are some, I think at BSI at the minute, the current count is some 1,200 technical committees and 14,000 experts. So this is a network of national committees, but they're also with mirror committee responsibilities. We are acutely aware that that we are not working alone. I'm learning about the important work that you do in ARSO, but of course you are all also participating yourselves in the international work in bodies like the ISO and the IEC, as are we. We also have our European regional groupings as well, and it's really important for us to facilitate that as possible, and to take that broad view of where standards will be used. And then to put the proper governance documents up. There's links there to our governance documents, in particular BS0, the standard for standards. And together, all of this is what underpins BSI's role as the national standards body for the UK. So, and I think for us, then it's really important then when we think about the impact of standards and we think about how to maximize those opportunities, that we are working together. You noticed this was in my biography, with other actors in the national quality infrastructure. Now, in particular with BSI, we're working with the National Metrology Institute, which is the National Physical Laboratory, and our national accreditation body, because together we are three big national bodies who, what we try to do is coordinate our activities, particularly when we all have a certain level of independence from the government. BSI and UCAS were entirely independent from government. National Physical Laboratory is a bit different. The government owns it, but it has to operate independently. But we often need to face these issues together, and we are in close dialogue all of the time with our government stakeholders, trying to understand their needs and trying to understand or trying to help them understand how standards can help them do more with what they need to do, with the regulations, with the future conditions of the British economy and how the UK economy interacts with the world. We're also, together with that, we work with market surveillance, conformity assessment bodies, but then there's a broader community out there covering, I noticed it was mentioned earlier today as well, the intellectual property and how do we engage with that? And so for us, there's a really big open question, and it's work that is the work that is never complete in terms of engaging across the quality infrastructure and really making sure that that where we can, that we seek to coordinate, we seek to coordinate our activities and present a common message. And this was just a 5-slide presentation that I'm here to give today. So for my 5th slide, I really wanted to, and you might have seen from the logo that this is BSI this year, the year 2026 is BSI's 125th anniversary. So the first standards committee came together in 1901 to look at standardizing dimensions of steel, so that bits of steel could be joined together for things like railways and putting up buildings and that sort of thing. And so that very first standard, what went into it was research and evidence that was coming from the marketplace as to why things were not working. And this is why a group of engineers got themselves together to sort that out. And from that grew what we now do at BSI and what we've been doing for 125 years. So here I have selected a few pictures from a campaign that we're running. So the website is at the bottom. We're running a campaign that you can see on our website around what 125 standards that have had impact over our 125 years. And so, things like progressing the transition to a circular economy, and on the economics, on the environmental side, air quality monitoring and harnessing the power of wind energy, as well as things like global freight trade, innovation, enabling innovation in things like healthcare and other industries. And as we consider the digital future for the world, how we enable those things. And so often what we're doing, if you spend some time, and if you do go onto that website in your own time and have a look, you will see that many of the standards that we are highlighting are actually ISO and IEC. They are international standards because, we take as seriously the work that we do nationally as the work that we do globally, where we are co-developing standards with you, with your bodies and with others across the ISO system. Because it is research and evidence that drives the content of standards, but also I think what's really important when we're thinking about research, well, what is it that makes standards, that really gives standards the edge there, is because in standards we're anchoring all of that into a real world context. And through the work that our committees do, they are sharing their knowledge, and then through the work that we learn, we need to sort of make sure that we have broad stakeholder involvement in standards, including consumers and other society representatives, as well as academia, as well as industry. And this itself is an instrument of knowledge transfer through shared knowledge. But then if we also remember that in the standards world, once we publish a standard, it doesn't stand still. Every few years we go back, we review it, we revise it, we refresh it if it's needed, because the point of a standard, again, is that real world context. We need to understand how people are using it and how can we make them even better. So I think, my concluding message for you today is that with no evidence, if we don't have evidence, we don't have standards. That is, in fact, the lifeblood of what we do. It really, I think, helps to bring us back as standards bodies to our core purpose as organizations and why we need to work together. So that's my last one. So that's just a very few slides to sort of offer that little perspective, just to round off from the really interesting presentations that my predecessors have already made today. So happy, of course, to take any questions if there is time.
Thank you so much for the great presentation. Now, due to time constraint, we'll have to take key takeaways from the panelists and sum up our today's webinar. So, Mr. Richard Kawere, what is the key takeaway point from this webinar for today?
Well, thank you so much, Susan, and my colleagues, the other presenters. We have had quite enough. Why we know that research is the foundation of all the standards we have, and the good management research practice standard is coming in as a anchor to bring a uniform framework that we can all be able to deploy in our organizations to try and create more trust. So my key takeaway is that the good management research practices is not only coming for compliancy, but it is a tool that is going to unlock innovation across our organizations and countries, which is critical for our adoption. Thank you very much, Susan.
Thank you, Mr. Cosmas.
Thank you very much. I think my key takeaway and what I will also like everyone to carry home is that what Dan has said, standards are living documents, and therefore they need to be updated or reviewed as changes take place. We live in a rapid changing world. Technology is changing, generation is changing, the way of doing things is changing, and so should standards be changing and evolving. That is my take. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Vincent.
Thank you, Susan. So I think my key takeaway for today is I would urge, national standards bodies to really work closely with universities and research institutions in their countries, because there are opportunities that that the work that the universities and research institutions are doing can really feed into what the national standards bodies are doing. I see some interdependence of the work that both partners are doing, and it would also, strengthen the standardization work that is being conducted, within the countries. So we've been, talking to some researchers. It's unfortunate that some of them don't understand, the work that standards bodies are doing, and but also standards bodies, sometimes do not engage with universities and institutions, and yet there's a way they can really collaborate and elevate both standardization and research and innovation work in their geographical location. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Vincent. So our last key takeaway from Mr. Daniel.
Yeah, so for me, I think it is, and I would agree with my predecessors, and I would add to that the importance of for us as standards bodies to remember stakeholder engagement and all of the types of stakeholders that we need to that we need to speak to, and that we need to be able to reach them in ways that make that they can understand. So when we're reaching out to the research community, how can we make standards understandable to them so they see it as attractive to what they're doing? I also see that a question came in just at the end about consumer engagement, and that's something that I manage at BSI. Again, this is a different category of stakeholder, and we just need to make sure that we can hear those. So can we challenge ourselves with the limited resources we have in the standards world to hear those different voices? Because yes, research is really important, but we also need to think about all of the other evidence that we can hear, and that we are in a unique position in the standards world. We can stand in the middle of all of these things, reach out to our research and university community, but also reach out to communities and societal stakeholders, as well as the industry that we're very used to working with. And that's the unique role that we have in standards, to stand in between all of that and hear those voices and help them to come together, and we blend them together, and that's what helps us to make better standards. So thank you.
Thank you so much to our panelists for the excellent presentations, and to our participants for attending and listening in. My apologies, my camera has not been working, but this is me, Susan Charlo. I've been behind the camera, but thank you all for your active participation. And now hand over to Mr. Philip for the closing remarks. Thank you.
I think sometimes we have been going through these sessions. This is the 66th, and every time we do one, I think normally it is the best, but now I'm just realizing that the best is yet to come, because this season today has really opened our eyes again that a standard cannot just be a standard. There are so many things that make a standard, and the role of research is key in this regard. So I think we are very, very, very lucky to have had our presenters today, and we really congratulate you for the great performance in terms of deliverance and insightful presentations that you have given us today. And I think we were really worried about the timings, but I realized that at the same time, it has become one of the best webinars that we have been having. Allow me to share my screen to just finally call it an end. Are you able to see my screen?
Yes, presentation mode, please.
Thank you very much. We are just from this session. We have taken note of some questions on the chat box. We will respond to them. We want to highlight that we will share all the presentations, including this background presentation by the Central Secretariat. Our takeaway from the Central Secretariat is about the power of good research, the power of good standard. The world moves on standards, and standards rely on good research outcomes, trustworthy research process, which is based on a good research management practice standard like what we have already and what the panelists have also discussed, which specifies the requirements for a good standard. We are in a session whereby standards continue to be recognized as the strategic pillars for sustainable development, industrialization, and economic growth. And I think I've been in about 4 sessions or 5, including the WTO, where this World Development Report 2025 continues to affirm that standards for the World Development Report 2025, covering all perspectives within the globe, and we say standards for development, and which has been developed in collaboration with policymakers and standardization bodies also included, and which has qualified standards as instruments for development and trade and the invincible infrastructure of modern economies. So it's aligned with what even the G7 in 2017 observed, that the G7 leaders meeting in Italy renewed their policymakers' commitment to using standards as a key policy instrument. You need already, when the UN declared the 2016-2026 as Industrial Development Decade for Africa, rooted for quality infrastructure as the only pathway for sustainable development for any nation. And we have PTB's Yagman who says quality infrastructure standardization. It is not everything, but everything without quality infrastructure is nothing. If you don't standardize your research, then it comes to nothing. So we need to standardize our research to ensure that we have the good standards and the good technical requirements therein. USAID advises the inclusion of standardization systems in the development economic policies. That one will be our takeaway, and we thank our stakeholders today. We thank the participants. We thank the panelists for the good work. In our last webinar, I think we were doing edible insects for food security, and the issue of agroecological and organic agriculture came in as a basis of food security. We are glad that in our 67th session, most likely within this month, we are sorry we might have 2 webinar sessions this month, but we want to focus on this because it is also one of the topics that is gaining much more attention: the agroecological, organic agriculture, and the food security. And we have highlighted this, and we are working with so many stakeholders in facilitating this thought about agroecological or organic agriculture. And we want to focus on that. We'll focus on feeding the world and say, can agroecological, can organic agriculture feed the billions of populations that we are going to have? So that one will be our next webinar. We will decide on the date, but tentatively it is on 24th June. We still continue to invite you for our General Assembly meetings, where we have had a lot of activities also for capacity building, and it is based on standards enabling inter-African trade under the FCFTA. One certificate working for you. It was supposed to be in June 15th to 19th, but due to Ebola outbreak and health challenges, it has been postponed to August as we continue engage on the situation as it evolves. Otherwise, we want to take this opportunity to thank you so much. And these are our webinar sessions that we still have ahead of us. Thank you so much. It has been a great opportunity. And on behalf of our Secretary General, I thank the panelists for the insightful presentations that they have given us. And I think now we really understand how good research and good standards are intertwined. He's saying where there is just thought about an idea, it can be standardized, and when it's standardized, it gains the confidence that it makes the processes to be trustworthy and people to have confidence in them. So today we've learned a lot, and we want to thank you very much. At this point, we just want to ask our ICT department, and we ask our delegates and participants, if you can have your cameras on, then we can have an opportunity to take a snapshot of this very great important day that we have shared, we have learned, and we continue learning. And we realize that the stakeholders' involvement in standardization is key ARSO together with Science for Africa Foundation, because Science for Africa Foundation is an organization that is championing the role of research in sustainable development. So that is the way we go. Yesterday I was in a meeting with Enable an inability. It is called championing the rights of persons with disability in the world and in Africa. And currently we are working on harmonizing a standard on accessibility that takes care of the persons with disability. You remember that standards are also driven by policy, and we already have the UN Convention on the Rights of People with Disability, which was adopted in 2006 and came into force 2008. The African Union has not remained behind because there is already a protocol, African Union protocol on persons with disability, that was developed in 2018 and currently is being implemented by countries, with Kenya now having 2025 Disability Act, which now also makes this and requires that we have a standard. We are working with Enable and with other partners to harmonize this standard. It was, we look forward to also launching it one of the days. So stakeholders' involvement, as the WTO tells us, is the key also. So we want to thank Science for Africa Foundation for this far and for the presentations that you have given us, the BSI for giving us the international perspective also in this case. So, and also Mr. Kawera, who has himself been driving the agenda for ARSO, and he participated as one, instead of an ARSO staff, he was the chair and he was in the driving wheel. Thank you very much. And our able moderator, Ms. Susan, thank you so much for facilitating the plenary sessions. Thank you, audience. And it is time for our photo. Let us take our photo. Have your camera on. It is a memorable day. Research, good research for standards, and standards without good research is not good. Our takeaway for today. Susan, are we okay?
Yes.
Okay. We want to thank you very much, and we say bye-bye.